Welcome to Railfans. I'm Shane Sege. Join us as we discover Ottawa's O train, Toronto's subway, and Montreal's metro system together. Welcome to Railfans Canada. I'm Shane Sege. Joining me today, David Bellerive, who's a longtime rail enthusiast. Thanks for joining me again today.
Hey, pleasure as always.
So today we're going to be talking about the big announcement, the big reveal that's on everyone's mind right now, or at least it's on our minds. Via Rail's new fleet for the corridor. And the corridor is the busiest segment of the Via Rail network, running between Windsor, Ontario, and Quebec City up north. We got to see the new Siemens SC-42 charger trains. These are fantastic new trains, double-ended, beautiful, as you can see, stunning train with all sorts of great new comforts, more accessible, more efficient, and just all sorts of great new features. What really stands out to you, just to start things off, David, about this train that really pops and excites you?
Well, obviously visually they're stunning. Like I know a lot of people like the original rendering we saw, like renders with the basically you take the coach livery and just stretch it all the way to the front. I know some people really liked it, but I think they outdid themselves with the final design. I really like how it transitioned from the locomotives to the cars and then the cab cars. That visually they're stunning. It's modern. It's bright, like I think it's everything Via Rail has been trying to be, but couldn't be without new equipment. Like I guess we'll talk a bit more about it as we go along the train to cover the different elements. But it's definitely, like, there's no doubt it's modern. You look at it and you know it's a brand new start, if I can put it this way.
Exactly. I mean, it has a nice sleek look from front to end. I love how it sort of has like that bullet or TGV style look to it, where it has a sweeping front as compared to the older locomotives that are pretty hard, flat fronted. Yeah. So as we take a look at the front here, this is the locomotive, and just the side livery of the train itself, really showcasing the name Via Rail Canada, the yellow stripe above and then the little one below the windows. It's just such a nice, clean, eye-catching design to the whole train. And then even the engine, you can actually see in a little bit. It's not totally closed off. You kind of have a bit of a little bit of a view inside with the Via marquee right in the middle. And again, how the design starts to transition on the locomotive into what will be on the coaches behind it is really neat. And what you just talked about a while ago, I really find the design is really eye-catching. It stands out. It looks rich and prestigious to some point. Like the colors and everything, it just really looks classy. And I feel that's something that had been lacking just a little bit with Via for a little while there, with the different colors of the trains and the different marquees and all that. But just bringing it really back to the basics right now, a clean, streamlined, prestigious, clean, modern look to it. It's really stunning and something to look at.
Yeah, I probably said it a few times over the years. Like I probably mentioned it in the rail chats before, but Renaissance was trash. It's not a good livery scheme. Like it looks fine. Like I get it. They had to do with the fact that the equipment is not the same height and everything. But like this new livery feels complete from one end to another. If I can put it another way around, it's basically think of the new Siemens like as the new LRC. Like it's that kind of allure. Like it's one end to another, all matching, all the same branded identity. It's all new and it's refreshing. I think that's the best way to look at it for at least for the time being. Like and also all the lines have motion in them, if that makes sense. Like if you look, even at the standstill, the locomotive and the cab car, like with the sweeping line like that, it really gives a sense of going fast. It gives a sense of we're going somewhere, like moving forward, even while standing still. Like we saw it on a static display. Obviously, we didn't get the chance to be on board, like during some tests or anything like that. But it definitely looks. It looks good. Like there's no way around it. And it's not controversial. The design for once, we're not. It's not a case of I kind of like it. No, it's been really a positive outlook from a lot of people. Like it's from the people that were there. I think everybody could agree the train looks good. Even people that I showed the pictures that might not be as much as into trains as we are, they still really love the design. Like they say, wow, that's modern, man. That's gonna via really. It was time.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the really interesting features with this train is the fact that it is bidirectional. So previously, train would be pulled by the locomotive at the front. When it would reach the end of the line and it needed to operate the opposite direction, it had to do all sorts of, it doesn't sound complex, but when you have to navigate through very specific places on the network to be able to bring the train, sort of bring it around. You can't do like a 3-point turn like you can with a car, right? So it's definitely more planning and timing involved. That delays things. This train is really unique because it has the final car on the train is a cab car, meaning, and as you can see in the picture here, the engineer or the conductor can sit in there and operate the train from the rear end and operate it forward in that position, with the locomotive pushing it in that case rather than pulling it. That's really something new, and it's something that you see, like on subway trains or metro or the O train. They can operate back and forth in both directions. This is something that we didn't see before in Canada on passenger rail. So this is really going to speed things up, and it again creates a really nice sleek look to the train on both ends. It has like this really nice symmetry to it.
Yeah, it's so push-pull for VRL. It's something relatively new. Originally, the LRC was supposed to have locomotives on either end, like to enable like the 200 kilometers an hour service. They were planning for it. But the Siemens chargers, they're so efficient. They only need one locomotive for the I would say for most configurations you'll see. We can go in details over that a bit later, but that's also in the article we have on the website. You can see the standard configurations, but essentially you can have a 8-car train without needing a second locomotive, which is obviously a lot more capacity than what you might be able to do with a P42 or F40 or even like the older LRC locomotives. The cab car inside, basically the cabin, we don't have pictures because obviously we're not allowed to go that far in the train, but essentially the cab car is it's the same control cabin you have on the other end. So the train could technically leave from, just give an example, you enter Gare Centrale with the locomotive in the front. So because you're leaving from, let's say, Ottawa to Montreal, you have the cabin in the front on the locomotive. That's where your conductor is, and then you leave Montreal Central Station with the crew in the cab car instead, and you can go all the way to Quebec City without needing to reverse or pull back or anything like that. That's, operationally speaking, that's a huge improvement. I don't know if the cab car itself, like the cabin, connects with the passenger area. So if hypothetically speaking, the staff could disembark the train, let's say like the engineers could disembark the locomotive by the side door, then walk inside the train and just go all the way to the back from there, or if they need to enter by the exterior only. But either way, it's something really, I think, productive for VRL. One more thing to mention about the cab car is obviously that's going to help for, like you say, turnaround time. It's going to save some fuel costs also along with it. It's going to bring maybe some improvements to the timetable. They don't want to say it's going to, obviously it doesn't allow for trains to go faster right now. It just allows them to have less turnaround time between the departure and the end of a service. So it could increase frequency marginally, not in a meaningful way that will go from 4 or 5 service a day on the certain lines to maybe 10. We're not in the HFR territory, but it's something that's going to enable the kind of operations they'll need to have for HFR down the road as more trains roll out.
Now, another interesting feature about these trains, again, another look at the side and how the livery from the coaches themselves blends in very nicely to the locomotive. The different cars have articulated sections between them. It's like an open gangway. It very much like, let's say, the Toronto TR Rocket or the Metro Azur in Montreal or the O Train in Ottawa. You can walk from one end to the other. There's automated sliding doors in between, but it's completely enclosed. So you're not going to have, let's say, drafts of cold rushing air or noise or snow or rain or any kind of infiltration of the elements. It's going to be a nice clean passage from one to the next. So that's definitely something new and unique. It's going to be really interesting to see operate. Taking a look now at the inside, obviously that's where people are going to spend most of their time. They're not going to be oogling on it on the outside for very long before they get inside. So taking a look at the inside, really clean layout, very modern. The seating is modern, very comfortable. The seat backs are very supportive. The headrest is really nice and soft and plush. If we go to the next picture here, you can see how the headrest is really very much like one you would find on a more premium car that really wraps around and has a lot of bolstering to it. Very nice. I've seen some people make comments on the internet, the headrest. The headrest is very nice. There's nothing to worry about with the headrest or the seats. I'm very impressed with the seating that they chose. They could have gotten with something really plain and basic here, and these are really, I would say, a fairly premium seat in my opinion for this train.
It's a bit so for those that might be more following trains internationally, you might look at those and say, wait, that looks like what you have on the German IC trains, like the Intercity Express. It's similar, but it doesn't have the flaws of the IC seats. So like you mentioned, they have really good support. That the back is firm. And that's what you want on a seat that you're going to sit for a long time. That's the whole point. You don't, a padded chair is comfortable, but it's going to stick to you. It's going to be hot all the time, but this is going to give you some good support in the back. You can adjust the height of the cushion on the headrest. It gives, honestly, it's a one finger thing. You don't even need to take your two arms and while you sit adjust the headrest like that. It's really one finger push up or down. You set it, you don't need to touch it again. The recline gives you some really good I would say it's probably 25 degrees more that it gives in recline. It's not extreme, obviously, because you have people behind you and you still need to be able to keep the table level but it gives you ample recline to sit, have a rest if you desire to do so. Personally, and also worth pointing out that those seats were custom designed for VRL. They're based on other seats you might see elsewhere. But VRL in their order, that's something they covered in the technical briefing. They wanted to make sure that there's no, whichever seat you have, it's not a compromise, in the sense that, as you can see on those pictures, especially on this picture, it makes it even more obvious. Each seat has two armrests. They're independent from another. They're not shared. So if you sit with your partner, you can have the armrest up if you want to have more space. If you sit with a complete stranger, you can have them up, down. They can have it up, down. It doesn't affect you. It doesn't change anything for your comfort. The recline is independent on both seats. You have they're adjustable they're adjustable on the most important parts of a seat that you're going to spend a long time on. And obviously, we didn't try them for 6 hours or 8 hours or anything like that, but it's a kind of seats that if you sit on it, you kind of get a good sense of where the fatigue points will be. I guess the biggest point for some will be maybe there's not enough padding in the bottom of the seat, but honestly, those trains make it so much easier just to walk around than the previous ones that I don't think it's that much of a fault. Like, that's how seats are being designed nowadays. They have less padding on the bottom because the train does a better job of absorbing the roughness of the tracks. So there's less need for it to be padded on the seat itself. You're not going to be jumping up and down the seat. Like, you're going to be relatively stable all the time. So it should make it less harsh on your body to sit in there for a long period of time. But obviously, we'll have to see when they're in service and we get a real chance to sit on them for longer than a few minutes. Yeah, one more thing to add actually on this picture. The table, you might see there's extensions on it. They're not pulled out right now on them, but basically they slide out, so you can just grab them by the underside and just pull them out towards, like, to have a bit more space. It's independent for each seating position, so it's not one big thing you have to decide, like with the person beside you, if you want it down or up. No need also to remove everything off the table to be able to fold it back. So that's definitely a huge improvement in that regard. Only thing I'm going to say, it took 3 of us to figure out how to push it back into place. I'll just, like, maybe it's because the labeling is not clear. Maybe because we're not used to it yet. But essentially you need to push. So from the table itself, you need to push towards the back of the extending area, and then it's gonna go down a bit and then let you push it back into place. Once you know that, it's easy, but it's you might I'm sure the staff is going to be able to assist, like if you have questions the first few times you're on the trains, but it's something to keep an eye out for, I would say, because it took 3 of us a couple minutes. Like, it wasn't the brightest moment we had on the train, but yeah.
So a couple other improvements on this train. Again, only this car of the train, the economy class, was available to be seen. However, it also has a business class. So some details may vary from one to the other. You know, the seats might be just a little different. But what I want to point out here is that each seat in economy has one AC outlet and one USB outlet. Now, in the business class, I believe that goes up to 2 outlets and 2 USB outlets per seat. But that's still really something that's great. So somebody can come with their USB charger cable. They can come with their laptop. They can plug directly in, keep it topped up, and not run things down. The trains are also equipped with Wi-Fi. Now, again, the Wi-Fi is provided by cellular connection. So depending on where the train is, depending on what's going on in that area, the connection speed may vary naturally, just as it would on your cell phone, depending on where you are if you're traveling through an area. But again, to be able to offer strong, nice, capable Wi-Fi outlets, there's a lot of nice convenience features on these trains. Again, I really enjoy the seats. The color scheme in the train is really nice and modern, not too colorful. So it's not stressful. It's nice and calming to sit in the train. It was calm feeling. Like, you know, when you ride on, let's say, like a commuter train, the colors typically tend to be fairly flat or muted, to sort of create like a more calming experience. It's not super colorful. It's not super flashy. It's not anything to grab your attention or to really stress you out. I find that this train is really nicely done in that sense. The colors are clean. There's a lot of LED natural light coming from above. There's little pot lights going above on the just below the the baggage compartments on the top. And it's just really clean. The aisle as well, double the width of what they used to be, so they can pass 2 like the little carts, the trolleys, back and forth. They can have 2 going through there at the same time. It's also better for people that have mobility problems. Makes it more accessible to get through. It's not cramped and tight. So a lot of great things as well. The display screen at the top, it'll provide some information rather than just being the static train number that used to display in the older series of trains. So a lot of improvements in this train. What did you learn about some of the creature comforts, let's say, at the technical briefing, David?
You mentioned it already, but basically the entire train, from one end to another, it's all LED. There's not a single light on the trains that's not LED. From the front of the train to the cab car, all the carriages, everything is LED to obviously reduce energy draw, so you don't need to have the engine running as much in the locomotive. So you might see them on the just on the under tray of the luggage rack, but basically they have individually controlled reading lights, so they are also LEDs. The PA announcements, their speakers almost at every seat, so they're also integrated in the carrier in there to enable the PA announcements to be heard clearly throughout the train. There should be a lot, and these speakers are apparently a lot clearer than the ones that are in the older coaches. So that should make make it easier for people that maybe with some hearing difficulties to hear the announcement clearly. In addition to them being on the screens, so you're gonna have both options: visual, audit, and audio. Obviously, there's it's a bit more difficult. Like if you have how can I say it? Like the screens are placed throughout the train. You should be able to read them from pretty much anywhere in the train because of the the screens face both ways. Like something that maybe OC Transport should learn about. But anyway, that's off topic. The seats face back and front, but the screens are readable from any seat in the train. We haven't seen how exactly it's going to look on those screens, like the information. It should normally tell, I think, the planned information to show on the screen at all time is the next stop, the time, and the time to arrival. But that might change, obviously, as things are getting closer to being finalized. You also have similar screens in the bathrooms. I think we're going to cover them anyway as we move along to the trains themselves. One more thing they mentioned in the briefing, you might see it also to the left of the screen at the top. Those trains have closed circuit cameras, so CCTVs throughout. It's the first for VRL, if I recall correctly. They're on per VRL's technical briefing, they are only used for in the event of an incident or to monitor that everything is going smoothly in the trains. Somebody asked if they were going to use for facial recognition purposes. VRL said no. They're gonna obviously they still have to disclose that there's cameras in the train, so there's going to be labels. I don't know where exactly they're going to be put, but they mentioned that they're going to install labels that are going to disclose that the cameras are running 24/7. They're remotely accessible by the head office if they need to for again investigation purposes or just to monitor what's going on the trains. But it shouldn't make much of difference for the regular users, I think. Unless you're a troublemaker, well, be warned, you're going to be watched, and they're going to have proof that you did something bad. So they were quite happy to also mention the trains are going to have fire smoke detectors throughout. I think they had it on the previous trains. I'm not gonna quote that or as definitive, but like you mentioned, electric outlets, USB and 120 volt standard plugs throughout the train. They were not installed in the economy carriage as we went through it, but if I asked someone for that, they pretty much said that it should be in a similar position to what you see on the current train. So it should be between the two seats. It should be under, and then you would be basically plugging your things right beside you, if that makes sense, instead of in front of you. It could change, but that's information at least they were. That's the information they had at the time. Tray tables, they are solid. It's not real wood. That's not the point I'm trying to make here. But they're There's solid feeling. You can put a laptop on it. You can have food or anything. I don't expect them to wobble as much as the previous tables you see on older equipment. Size wise, I would say I would say they're a bit larger. I definitely could see someone's putting a 15-inch probably MacBook Pro on like a 15-inch MacBook on it without too much of an issue. I don't think you can go much larger, but again, it kind of makes no sense to have bigger tables than that. Like because obviously it depends on the width of the the width of the seat in front of you. So it's probably as large as they could fit, but they are. Comparatively speaking, they're a really good size. Like they're definitely solid. Like they're not gonna wobble up or down during if you have any weight on them. Cup holders obviously integrated on the table, so I think that's more important in business class maybe than in economy because of the food and drink service throughout the trip. But it's integrated on every table. Pocket for the documents, as you would see on any train, because they have obviously to have the security card, the evacuation card, sorry, I should say, the litter bag and documentation, like for economy, the tray cart menu. I don't even know if they still have that on the trains right now because of the pandemic, but it's ample storage, pretty much. Like it's what you would expect on that kind of train service. And we don't have a picture of it because they were not installed in the coach we visited. But the luggage space for that's basically by the entrance is now going to be a flexible luggage space. So what they mean by that is essentially the previous ones are a fixed shelf. You cannot move it, you cannot remove it, which is a bit more problematic if you have large items. So the example they gave us is someone with a bike. So the new trains are going to be able to accommodate bikes, and then they have vertical racks. So they basically in the luggage space would just fold down the shelves. On one side, you could place a bike and still have shelves for more luggage. Most of it, they say most of the luggage should still be able to fit on the tablets. There's also space under the seats. So it's more similar to maybe what you would expect. Under seat would be similar to what you'd expect on a plane. Above it should be. I don't have like exact numbers or dimensions or anything to give you, but if it fits in the, I think visually speaking at least, if it fits in the LRC over the luggage space, it should fit in there. I don't know if like Renaissance is probably like because of the format, it's hard to say, but if it fits in the LRC coach, it should be able to fit in there with no difficulty. Plus you get the additional under space. So open luggage racks also like that are kind of new for VRAIL. It's really something like Siemens has done on all their trains for the longest time I can recall. Like it's a common feature between all the Venture coaches that you will see and the ones you see also in Europe. So it's not a big surprise to see it here. I think some people are going to wonder, well, is my luggage going to slip around the train or bounce up and down? I wouldn't expect it because of like how much better the suspension on those trains are, and obviously trains normally don't stop really quickly. Like they slow down progressively. You don't really feel the braking motion that much, so there should be that much force applied to the luggage that it just flies around. Because obviously we'd have a problem in that case, but
a point to what you just said there about how they're smoother. The different cars are actually, in a way, permanently attached to each other rather than being coupled and decoupled. So there should be less slack in between them when the train starts, when the train stops. So in that sense, that's another improvement that people hopefully should notice. It should be smoother starting and stopping as well, and not have that jolting feel that you would typically get on a train.
Yeah, when you have to pull on the joint. Yeah, so just to add, clarify on that even more, like yes, they're semi-permanently coupled, so they can still be split. Like they can reconfigure a train set to have more or less cars as they need for different types of service. However, it's it's a bit more involved of a process than what you would see right now, that you can just unhitch the other cars behind and unplug the HEP power and connection cable between the coach and the rest. It's definitely doable. It's just a bit more involved. And coaches normally, obviously we haven't seen all the details for the layout, like for let's say the car behind the locomotive and everything, but they're able to cut off like some sections of the cars and still keep the open gangway one into another. So no matter the configuration you'll be on, it should be a flat level floor throughout from one end to another. Speaking of the gangways, actually they are fully, we mentioned it earlier, but fully sealed. They should not let any rain, snow, or anything in them. So like they should, like for the passengers, obviously it should make for a better experience, but help with maintaining the temperature inside the train, instead of having maybe some spots that might be colder or warmer than others. And they should also have, I think, so I don't know if it's just for the business coach, but they're gonna have glass doors at either ends of the coach, like to isolate the cabin area from the gangways, to a bit reduce noise even more. All those doors touchless. They're pretty much your standard sensored opening doors. So normally when you approach them, they should open on their own. Glass doors also to help with the open feel of the carriage themselves.
So moving on a little bit more, we have accessible washrooms. Now, these washrooms are significantly bigger than the ones found on the legacy trains, and as well significantly bigger than what you would find for the most part on any aircraft. Big, open, expansive, lots of light, lots of room. The door is actually automated with a push button to make it open and close automatically and without having to pull it open and shut. So it's great for people with mobility aids. When you take a look around inside, it has a lot of room in there. You have a great sink area, big mirror. The motif as well on the walls as well is really colorful. As you can see there's a fold-out change table for people that have children or infants. If you look the other way, the toilet area, again, fairly large. Lots of grab bars. You can see at the bottom there's even emergency call buttons if you find yourself, if you fall or you get injured in there. You can easily call for help, whether you're still upright or if you're on the floor, unfortunately. So there's definitely a lot of accessibility improvements in these units. What can you add on the bathrooms, David? What did you learn at the briefing about them?
I think you pretty much covered the major points for them. One thing they were particularly proud to mention is you might look at the layout and wonder why the toilet is sideways compared to everything else. So it's a design choice. It's to basically enable someone to basically sit down and stand up from the toilet in whichever direction they prefer. So some people with mobility issues might have muscular atrophy on one side only, so they might not be able to stand up or sit down from the left side or the right side. So this way it gives them as many options as possible to stand up. Obviously, that's why also there's the assistance button. So you have the two emergency buttons, the red ones, but you also have the what was the word? It was I know it's a call button for the staff to the assistance button for if you need help to stand up or anything like that, like if you run out of toilet paper or something, they put it really close by to the toilet so that anybody can basically reach it if they need assistance. Also, they mentioned, so they are an electronic flush. You can see the button actually next to the toilet, but they are also automatic. So the way it was described to us in the briefing is basically that if basically you leave the toilet and it's gonna automatically flush itself if if it believes that you haven't used the like if for example like you haven't used the flush, it's gonna do it automatically. They say it's mostly a question to control like the smell in the bathroom, but also to keep them clean. They still say like obviously you have to push the button, like that's the desired outcome in there. It's just a backup. It's just a backup option for to help keep the bathrooms cleaner looking and smelling also for the passengers. Also, one more thing is we probably mentioned. I think we mentioned it, but you have also an information screen in the bathroom. This one's going to give you also the same kind of information as the overhead displays. Particularly useful if you're approaching your destination and just need a quick. A quick fix visually, like if you want to make sure like you're looking top notch for your meetings or anything like that. It's really I think it's a nice touch. Obviously, it depends how much information they show on them, like to make sure it's not an information overload. But they're definitely like it really continues to emphasize how modern and in design those trains are. What else? I think that's pretty much it for the bathroom from my side. 80 inches wide, actually, to give you space to rotate. So, like, even with any kind of mobility device, they say that someone should be able to rotate and navigate the bathroom without an issue. I think that it's 42 inches wide for the door, like the door width for someone to go in and out. So, it's really spacious. Like. I know the picture, like some people will say, oh, the pictures make it look bigger, but go look at how big your toilet is at home. Look at the one in the picture. It should give you a good idea of how big it is in there.
So moving on from the bathroom, it's funny to be talking about bathrooms on a train, but here we are.
It's weird to have that much to say about them. I think that's like, but I think it really it shows how much of an upgrade they are compared to the previous trains and how much they were needed. Because the accessibility point for VRL has always been a bit of a touchy point. They had lawsuits in the past about that, particularly with the Renaissance train sets, because if you've ever been on one of those, the seats, they're not at the same level as the floor. So it makes it a lot more difficult to go on the seat. I haven't been in one of those in like forever, so like I cannot comment much more about that, but I don't think there's a single thing in those trains that's not accessible to someone with mobility restrictions. Anyway, let's keep going.
So now we're looking at the galley. So this is the galley in the economy coach. You can see there's like recycling and disposal on the right side. On the left side, you can see the little kitchen area, the coffee makers. They told us jokingly at the press conference that the espresso is going to be better than ever before.
I mean, do we need to have an espresso machine to start with that? But anyway, that's not the point.
So what did they have to say about the bathroom, David, or the
you mean
the galley?
Yeah. I mean, I could talk about bathrooms again, but galleys, they're a lot bigger than they were before. It's I don't know if we have the picture for the business one. I know it's on the website, but economy one obviously has. Oh, well, there you go. Okay, so the economy one is bigger. The business one is considerably bigger. New carts for the staff. They're designed specifically to fit those train sets, so like they should really help with the serving experience. Combined with the fact that the alleys are wider, it should also like obviously that allows them to go down the alley with someone passing next to them without being like having to go back and forth. The equipment is obviously updated. Like it's modern equipment throughout, so it should help with service speed. It should allow them to have a better experience. If you go back on the previous photo, actually, for the economy galley, I think we see it a bit better, but no, actually we don't even. Okay, so both the economy cars and the business cars have a filtered water tap for filling reusable water bottles. So if you've been on any VRL service in the past, if you ask for a cup of water, they basically pour it from a plastic bottle, they put it in a cup, they give it to you. That's how it goes. Like it's nothing fancy. Like it's not. It's just bottled water. Well, those trains with that basically, if you have a reusable bottle or anything like that, In economy, it's going to be a self-serve option. So you just go to the tap, you can fill your water bottle, you can go sit back at your seat. In business cars, you have the option, but obviously you have the attendants there to also assist. So they're going to just grab your bottle, go fill it up for you, bring it back to you. And like, if you want a glass of water and you don't have your own bottle, they're going to do the same thing. So reduces plastic, reduces reliance on bottled water. That's, for me, is a big plus. They can fill it up like they would fill it, like you would fill your own water bottle at home. So like they just connect at main stations to refill the water tanks. They're supposedly big enough that they should accommodate like for all trips, like without needing for the entire route without needing to just turn it off. But it's built in, like that's there. That's also going to be like the same water supply they use for the coffee machines and everything like that. So. Also, they are the first trains with the separate trash recycling bins. I think they mentioned I think they mentioned compost for the third one, but I don't recall exactly. But also to ease with cleanup operations and turnaround times for the train. So the staff basically, customers and staff can just put it where it belongs, and then when they offload it off the train, they don't need to do the split themselves at the station. Also, obviously, helps to reduce the amount of trash that's generated from the train service. All small things that really, in the end, might make a bigger difference than some might expect. And you see the same kind of like thing in any restaurant or dining court nowadays in malls. But that's a huge step up for that. Brand new equipment, it's a lot bigger. And if we go for the business class one again, the amount of storage space for the staff is massive. Like obviously you have all the things you need for service, but they also have for the first time really like some more staff dedicated storage space that wasn't there before. So they can I think they're even locked, so like they don't need to just put their stuff wherever, like their space on the like they have their own storage space for them, which is quite nice. I spoke a bit with the staff on board the train. Obviously, like it's not like there's a difference between the train you've received 2 months ago and the train you've had for the last 40 years, but they really like the key word for them is like how much easier it's going to make their job. Like it's just so much more convenient to actually have all that space. Like if you've ever been in the galley in the previous trains, like they are really, really not that wide. Like the train at the minimum is 26 inches wide in the alleys. So that's, I think they said around 7 to 8 inches more. In the tightest spots, it's 7 inches more than some of the largest spots in the newest trains. And it goes all the way to 40 inches, obviously, with the bathroom doors and everything. But it gives them a lot more space for motion. Everything is better organized. It's really designed to suit the needs of the service they do on the trains. So that it should reflect in the service speed. It should reflect in the quality of the service you get also. So it's definitely something to keep an eye out. If you feel like it, you can talk about it with your train attendants when you're on board. But yeah, it should make for an even better experience for everyone.
So important to note that this train that was received is the first one. It's now a test train for the next year or so until it enters passenger service, expected end of 2022. So what we're seeing here is, again, there's various compartments and coaches of the train that are still exposed because, again, it is a test train. It's the first one. They want to validate, do some really heavy testing in the winter because, as you can imagine, the weather down in Windsor is going to be more tame than the wild winters that we get up in Quebec City. So they want to make sure that the train can easily cope with both extremes on the same trip and not have any issues, not develop any issues. So while we were taking a look at the train, you can see farther back over there, a glass door, there was actually Alstom engineers on the train continuing to work, even though it was on display to media. So that just goes to show that they're really taking things seriously. They're really working hard on the train to make sure that it will, in fact, meet all the needs of VRL, all the needs of the passengers, that it will be able to cope with the seasonal and extreme weather patterns that we do experience in Canada, because it can be 40 degrees in the summer and it can be minus 40 degrees in the winter or even beyond. And especially with climate change, the weather can be very unpredictable and it can be very harsh. So it's good to see that they're making sure and validating, especially with a big winter coming up in the next couple months, to make sure that the train really can handle it and that there's no issues before they start putting them into service. So they want to make sure it's rock solid. So having said that, you can see that there's some exposed sections here and there, some caution tape where they didn't want people and members of the media to go. But you can see right here one of the articulated gangways to cross between one coach to another. And you don't see it in the shot, but there'll be, as David said, automatic sliding doors to segregate the different sections. You walk up to it, it'll open and close, much like you would at a mall or a grocery store entrance.
Yeah. You can actually see one of them at the back of that picture, like separating the access to that coach. So they're not going to be exactly where the gangways are. They should be a bit further back. I think for the most part, they're basically going to be for coaches with. So basically, it's going to be separating the galley and the gangway and the next toilet, depending on the layout section. That part is going to be isolated from the coach itself. So doors are pretty much going to be where the seats end on both sides. Like that's for the layout. That's pretty much where you should expect to see them.
Now, another important point to make on these trains is that they are diesel electric. Now, currently, the line operates in, it's going to be operating with diesel fuel, but there are plans in the future. Nothing is concrete at this point, but there are plans in the future of electrifying the corridor service. These trains can be converted to run on electric power only. Obviously, the motors on the trains are electric. The diesel generator on the train supplies power to the motor, so it's not really far-fetched to think that that's at all even not remotely possible. How they do that, how everything's going to happen, still remains to be seen, but it will probably be something along the lines of a pantograph and a catenary system over above with the wire. Much like we see on Montreal's REM or the old Exo de Montagne line or the Ottawa O-Train Line 1. So something like that. But again, this is something that we're talking about in the future. What really matters right now is that they're more efficient, that they have more power, that they can be bidirectional, thereby saving time at the endpoints of a trip. Rather than having to turn them around, they can expedite servicing the train to get it back on its way sooner, so they can make better use of the fleet rather than having trains laid up for a certain amount of time unavailable while they're being repositioned and staged to start another one. That's going to play into the future when we really start seeing the high-frequency rail start getting developed, because they want to rebuild dedicated corridors. Again, Via Rail operates on the length of its entire network. About 98% of the track that it operates on is not owned or controlled by Via Rail. It is typically CN or CP freight lines that Via Rail operates on. They only have about 2% that actually really falls under their purview, let's say. So when the high-frequency rail comes into play, is that it's going to have dedicated rail. The trains are going to be able to travel at higher speeds between their destinations, between their different points and stops. The trains will not be relegated to fitting into the freight line schedule, so they'll be more flexible, they'll be more frequent. You might even see trains that depart every hour. I mean, there's a lot more possibilities, more flexibility, more convenience that comes from that. And one of the things that the government made clear was that part of these plans they're hoping to include electrification on a great portion of all of this. And these trains are one of the ways that they're going to be able to implement that. Because again, the old trains are not, they're getting on in age. They're not designed for that kind of conversion. These trains are capable of being converted to that kind of operation in the future. And for the segments that aren't going to be electrified, because it's not set in stone that everything can be, and it's not realistic to assume that everything will be, the train can still operate on diesel to bridge those gaps. So it's really a step in the right direction to get better service on this busy corridor across Canada. Again, Windsor to Quebec City, it's not stretching across Canada, but it's fulfilling the busiest segment of Canada. This is where VRL sees, let's say, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head there, but let's say around 70 to 80% of their ridership is probably in this corridor.
That's about right, I think. From the but it's basically the only, like, that's where VRL makes their money. Like, that's why the subsidy that the federal government gives to VRL is not as big as maybe their whole operational budget. That's because the corridor is profitable. But yeah, keep on. Sorry.
No, I was pretty much done on that. I mean, it's just a phenomenal train that's really going to revolutionize, transform, rejuvenate the VRL service, especially in this segment of the country, which again is the busiest, sees the most passenger flow, and increasing and enhancing the service is going to be really key. Now that we see that Greyhound has pulled out from Canada, so there's the Intercity Bus Service across Canada is really in shambles right now, and
it's fragmented at best.
Yeah, and what people are going to start doing, or maybe be forced to do, either drive, rent a car, take a plane, or take the train. And we want to see that the train really becomes a more attractive option, because person going through an airport from, let's say, Ottawa to Toronto, it can be a very nerve-wracking, stressful experience going through security, waiting for your bag. Is my bag going to make it? Is it going to end up in Timbuktu? I don't know. But that's enough to really, something like that happens. It's really off-putting, right? Because then your trip could be in a disaster, because you might have stuff there that you needed. Long story short, you spend way too much time in the airport, very little time on the plane. Whereas this, you spend very little time in the terminal or the station, a lot of time on the train. And what can you do in the train? You can watch TV show or a movie on your mobile device. You can make use of the food services. You can just walk the train, take in the views. It's definitely a different experience that is more relaxing. It also picks you up and drops you off closer to the city center, whereas in most cases the airport isn't right where your destination might be. If you're going from, let's say, downtown Quebec City and you want to go to let's say downtown Toronto. Well, if you're going from the main airports, and I'm not saying the Billy Bishop Airport here at Toronto, but the Pearson, then you have to get off, take the Union Express or the Up Express, Union Pearson Express downtown, and then transit from there. If you take VRL, you can get right off at Union Station, and the subway is right there, and you have full point access to all the major destinations in the city. Same for in Quebec City. You're right downtown where all the hotels are. Maybe they'll have a tramway one day. David will probably smile and hopes that will happen. We'll see what happens. We'll talk about
Fingers
that.
Crossed. Yeah.
But the train really is a beautiful, fun, enjoyable, comfortable, safe way, economical, because VRL has some great offers. You know, when they have their escape fares and all those offers that happen fairly routinely during the week. It's a great way to travel. The stations are bright, open, and really the important thing here is you spend a lot of time on the train, less time in the station. The complete opposite of a plane flight. And, you know, these new trains are going to be how they're going to get more people on board with this great transportation method. Safe, economical, more environmentally friendly than, let's say, a plane. And it's really a great train to be getting on the system. So now the big question really is, for those people out west and in the prairies and in the regions where they don't have the corridor because they're too far away, what is being promised for them? Obviously, there's some ramblings that some of the old trains that we have on the corridor right now might be redeployed to other areas that are in need of more service or potentially slightly newer trains. What have you heard on this, David?
So obviously, like it's all whispers of things, but realistically, the plan right now is that obviously that's 32 train sets we're getting. So that should be enough to replace the entire corridor fleet. The plans are pretty much right now to basically retire all the LRC coaches, mostly because they're end of life at this point. Like the rebuild program they did in the mid 2010s, like it basically bankrupted the company that was doing them just because of how much more work there was than expected in the first place. So they're not viable anymore. Like no, seriously, that's what happened. Like it's not. It bankrupted the company because they bid. It was a fixed price contract, and like they had to say, okay, like that's way out of scope. The amount of work that's to do on them, like beyond refreshing the interior. Basically, I think there's I don't know the exact numbers, but I think there's 21 P42s, so like the Genesis engines. Those ones, they're getting retired also. They're not getting a rebuild. It's not entirely a decision by VRL for that, mostly because so the P42s are mostly the same than the ones you have on Amtrak in the US. Amtrak is also retiring them for chargers. Charger locomotives with Venture cars on some routes. So there's no rebuild opportunity for them. And honestly, they're not that much of a great fit for VRL in the first place, like operationally speaking. The F40s, I think there's maybe also 20 of them right now on the corridor. All of them, they should still remain in service, but they're not going to be on the corridor. And that's where the famous opportunities are. I think the most likely thing to happen right now is some of them will be kept as pairs just to help with reliability. All of them have been through rebuild, I think, since 2007, I think, like from 2007 to 2012, I think they all had the rebuild. So they should be good to go for until 2030, 2035. They would still need more coaches, I think, if they want to implement new services. So I don't think we'll see a Edmonton-Calgary train. Like, obviously, there's a lot of factors that need to happen for that. But the most likely thing is probably to help with frequencies, maybe on routes like the Canadian, depending on the route, on the flexibility for the Ulster Railways to have more trains. Maybe on the ocean also, so between Halifax and Montreal. Those kind of routes might see increased service. It's hard to say, like we don't have definitive words, but there's definitely going to be more locomotives like in the for VRL to use than what they have right now, because basically easily I think 2/3 of the fleet, I would guess 2/3 are pretty much like locked on corridor service because of their shared nature. Like you do not have the P42s operating on any other routes than the corridors. So those ones are not going to make a difference. But the additional F40s, they're going to be able to move around. It gives some good opportunities, I think, for VRL to explore new routes. What I personally wish for is out west. Like they need to have something. I don't think it makes sense to leave the Edmonton to Calgary route. Wait, Edmonton to Calgary? Is it the one I'm thinking of? I think it is, but anyway, like that basically like to have more like those. If that's the one I'm thinking of, I think it's 3 hours between the two cities. That's the perfect target for a rail line. Like, there's no reason like why you should have a line between those two cities. Like, and then you can, if you have Edmonton connected to Calgary, then you also have the connection with Canadian. So like you make it a lot more connected with everything else. It's mostly flat. It's you just need the station and tracks that goes downtown on both ends. I think you don't have any in. Like, I think in Moncton doesn't have a station anymore that's connected to the tracks that they could use. But anyway, like it's. I think it would be a profitable route even for VRL, but they need the equipment. That's always going to be the problem. Like, they need the equipment, they need the funding. Like, it's always asking money from the government. HF are supposed to help them become more independent from the government in terms of funding. Like, they expect the increased ridership versus the cost of the program to really make them profitable in the long run. It's doable. Amtrak has been doing it. It's just a question of like when will it happen, and what equipment we're going to see probably on those new routes if they were to happen.
Yeah.
Like.
So time will tell on those different elements. Hopefully, Western Canada and the prairies get their due, especially with assistance from the government.
They should also do and they also need to do in the east. Like I know, like all the maritimes, like the eastern provinces, so like the Nova Scotia, and you can even think Gaspé, like in Quebec. You could have a Gaspé to Halifax train, or like I wouldn't call it a commuter train, but like more of regional trains in that on the eastern side of the country. Like there's definitely some appetite for that kind of service because again, they're relatively speaking, they're close one to another. They are the perfect kind of place to have a train service in place. So. Yeah, but time will tell.
Time will tell. So I think that about wraps it up for our little discussion on the new VRL fleet. Definitely something to keep an eye on. We've seen the first train now, hoping to see the next 31 trains to make up this 32 fleet. Train fleet come in short order over the next couple of years, and we'll see a newly rejuvenated and enhanced and improved VRL corridor service in the coming years. So it's definitely something to be excited about. Hopefully we get some more good news from HFR and that becomes a reality. It gets the funding and it moves ahead. So David Bellerive, thank you very much for sharing your passion once again on rail and talking with us again about these new Siemens train sets that VRL is going to be putting into service in the coming years. Thank you very much.
Pleasure as always. Also, I guess it's worth mentioning, like, come join us on the forums if you want. If you have any questions, if you want to discuss them further, share your opinions. Like that's a perfect place to do so. I think there's a lot to be like. Obviously, we need to fit it in a video, like not make it 3-5 hours long. But there's definitely more things that can be talked about the new trains that might not fit the regular format of content like people want to watch, but there's a lot more to say, and I really hope people are getting excited as we are right now.
Oh, definitely. I know we're excited, and I'm sure a lot of others are excited too. So thank you all for watching, and thank you again, David. We'll talk again soon. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we also invite you to check out the related videos on screen.